CBS Sports Radio.
You found the Playmakers on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Don't forget to take us with you over the holidays if you're headed out and about for Hanukkah or Festivus or Christmas or whatever it is you may happen to be celebrating this time of year. Download the radio.com app. It is free through the Google Play Store or iTunes App Store. Search out CBS Sports Radio 1140 and hit the heart in the upper left-hand corner. Well, the Raiders got a win yesterday in Los Angeles in front of a home crowd, clearly home crowd, and got booed. I mean, how do you get booed in your own place? But the Chargers have figured it out, and it was 24-17 was the final, and Derek Carr had a good football game.
He did.
He had a very good football game,
Yeah.
and so it seemed to have quieted the critics for about 10 minutes. Before everyone started piling on again and started talking about, well, you know, free agency is right around the corner. And we also have two fairly high number one picks. And last year we didn't use one on a quarterback. So, forget it. We're just going to go with him. He bought a house in Las Vegas. He's living right next to John Gruden, right?
That means you have to commit.
And so it means you have to commit to him. So the Raiders are still driving the car, so to speak, right now. And the Raiders, because they are still in playoff contention with the slimmest of margins, they need to pretty much win out the 5-team parlay, which I would suggest you all go down and bet on this one. Even if it's just $5, it'll pay off for you. I don't know. I'm a little confused about the love-hate relationship, to be honest, with fans and number 4. But I'm struggling with this because of a couple of things. Derek Carr as a quarterback is a serviceable quarterback. He doesn't make too many mistakes, as evidenced by the numbers this year. The numbers are good. They're fairly solid. They're not pedestrian by any means. But then he doesn't do anything spectacular. And as a guy who's running a John Gruden offense, I think I want to see something a little bit more spectacular. Yet, there's something to be said because he's got a 1,000-yard rusher in his backfield. And he hasn't had that before. So does this fan base give him the benefit of the doubt because of that?
It's amazing, covering the Raiders as we do on Silver and Black today and tonight. I've never seen a player really more polarizing than I've seen with Derek Carr. And I mean, I don't see a lot of people in the middle on him, right? So I'm there in the discussion. We're having discussions. We had Michael Lombardi, of course, of Radio.com Sports,
sure,
NFL Insider on last Sunday and yesterday. And we talked to him about it. And he has one point of view, which is, hey, look, Derek Carr is not the kind of quarterback John Gruden wants. Doesn't mean he doesn't like him. Doesn't mean they don't have a good relationship. But ultimately, the style of play that Gruden wants a fiery guy like him. It's why Rich Gannon succeeded with John Gruden his first time around. Okay, now he didn't have that guy in Tampa per se, but it's one of those things where I don't get why people dislike him so much. I can see why, hey, I want a quarterback who can go down the field much. Is he being asked to go down the field is the first question to ask, right? But secondarily, you find people who defend him to the death and don't see that he does anything wrong, and then you find people who make it sound like he is the second coming of the worst quarterback in the history of mankind. And so you got to figure the truth's in the middle, and I think you hit on it there. Serviceable quarterback, a good quarterback. Is he a transcendent quarterback? Is he a guy who's going to make every player on the offensive roster better because he has that presence? I would say no, but the question then, Paul, is does he have to be that guy?
And there's what you say, and you say no, and I say yes. I think he makes people better. I do. And here's the issue that I have with the personnel. First of all, for the Raiders, is that it's Ty Williams. I mean, it's him. Renfro just came back. We're still only seeing flashes of Renfro at this point. And the outside receiver is literally your tight end. I mean, if Waller is into this lineup, I don't think they have 7 wins. I mean, that's pretty clear. I mean, if he is the weapon. He is the second coming of. He's the West Coast Gronk. Yeah, let's put it that way.
Right.
He's out there catching everything, running routes. He's a big guy. He's really difficult to defend. But if he doesn't have that, I mean, legit, like seriously, Keelan Doss, I'm like, let's all get over ourselves. Take some big, deep breaths. Hard Knocks was fun. Yeah. Oh, that was such a great time. But Keelan Doss is still Keelan Doss. It's it's just who he is. Zay Jones, come on now. I mean, if Mayock is trying to build the Buffalo Bills 2.0 receiving core, he's pretty damn close. I mean,
Right,
except
but-
he just didn't steal anybody from the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, that's the one thing that we're missing right now.
But you brought up the example I use, actually, which is the Buffalo Bills. They don't have wide receivers either. Now, Brown has turned into a nice receiver because Josh Allen's gone to him more. But outside of outside of Brown, Josh Allen doesn't have. But look what Josh Allen's doing. Now, I know Josh Allen has the ability to do more with his feet and to run the ball. He's not as accurate as Derek Carr, not close. He's got a bigger arm.
Sure.
But to me, I mean, you look at the Raiders and the receiving core because that's a lot what people talk. Do they need upgrades there? Of course they do. You're right. They don't have a true number one. Their true number one is making weird music videos now and is out of the game.
That was so awesome, by the way.
Crazy.
I saw that thing.
It
I
was
was
crazy.
like, what are you doing? And then, by the way, well done.
Yes, yeah,
It
exactly.
was a little simply irresistible, Robert Palmer-esque.
But he does. So they don't have a number one wide receiver, absolutely. But there are a lot of teams that don't. And even I know it's going to seem crazy. You know who almost the last ranked team in receiving in the NFL is? It's the Ravens. So I think you look at numbers, you look at receivers. Do you have a 1,000-yard receiver? The answer is yes. In Waller, right?
Right.
So you don't need a ton of guys. You just and then Renfro yesterday. But I love what Derek Carr did yesterday because after all this talk all week and all this pressure and seemingly it getting to him the last few weeks in press conferences, if you can read body language and attitude, was he came out and he balled. I mean, he had a good game. He was in control after the game, the way he spoke. He said, look, we've been challenged. We need to pick it up. Whoever thought we'd be in a position going into Week 17 where we have an opportunity to make the playoffs. So you got to give the guy credit there. But again, one game does not erase the previous four where they couldn't do anything.
Sure.
Partly his fault, not all his fault. That's the other thing, too. Everyone wants to blame Carr for everything. He doesn't make the calls. John Gruden makes the play calls. So there's, I think, criticism you could look at there. So when we look at Derek Carr, it's fair to ask the question, is he the guy long term? Because you're in year 6 and you're still asking that question. That alone, to me, is a red flag. That doesn't mean he won't be here. I've said all along he will be the quarterback here next year. I really believe that. But that doesn't mean they won't go get somebody else or start to look at opportunities to perhaps find a different type of player that Gruden may want or may not want. Who knows?
And that's going to be the big question because right now, behind Derek Carr in terms of lineups, by the way, Paul and Scott, Playmakers here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140. Behind Derek Carr on this roster, when you look at the four, I guess it's a 3 deep, 4 deep at this point, it's Mike Glennon, Nathan Peterman, and Deshaun Kaiser. And these three guys, they're not rookies. They're not young guys. They've been in the league for a little bit. Glennon, obviously, who looks like a giraffe and probably won't be with this. He will not be a Raider next year. I would be shocked to see him in a Raiders uniform next year because they will draft somebody. I have this guttural feeling that it's going to be, they will draft somebody, and it's not going to be a free agent signing. I think they've already been there, done that. I think they're going to go draft somebody that will be the heir apparent to a Derek Carr. It has to be. But the concern is that Carr, do they deal him to a team that needs someone like that and hit the reset button? Unless this is where I'm struggling. And this is where I'm struggling because I'm having a hard time going, you know what, this is the way it needs to be and this is what they're going to do. I'm not in their shoes. And the thing is, Carr, again, a serviceable quarterback, and that's the trouble that I have inside is that he's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay.
And there's a lot of teams out there who would like Derek Carr. I mean, and if you look at systems, too, here's the other thing.
And they need okay.
Right, and we talked to Lombardi about this both on and off the phone the other day, which was, Derek Carr on the Bears actually makes a lot of sense. Because with their defense, you don't count on the offense to have to do as much as they do on other systems and other teams. Derek Carr on that offense and how they run their offense would be a great fit in Chicago. Because what do they lack with Trubisky is exactly what you're talking about, which is completion percentage and being steady and kind of methodically being able to do things. And then they have their defense, which helps them significantly. The Raiders aren't going to have a very good defense for quite a while. It's going to take some time to build it up. And also the way Gruden wants to play. So to me, I look at it and say, yeah, you know what? Unless you have a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers, one of those guys, if somebody comes with an offer and you want to do something else and figure out how you're going to move up and take a quarterback, the problem even in the draft, though, Paul, is outside of the first 3 quarterbacks, no one else really excites me. People love Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts would be an okay quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. I just don't.
You're looking at a lot of variables coming down the road in 2020. Draft, no draft, the big crop of free agent quarterbacks who are coming due here after year 5 for many of them. Is that the pick? Is that the way they go? Again, for Carr, for me, and I'm okay. I mean, we're all fine hitching the wagon here in the last. I mean, I think as fans, I think you've got to go listen. It's week 17. You're not going to hey, here comes Mike Glennon's going to save the day. I'm like, listen, it's the last game of the season. This is what it is. You ride or die. This is how it goes. But I think if you speak to the team, I don't think you're going to find very many guys and go, you know what, we need to make a change. This is not going to be our guy. I think they see the leader in him. They see that leadership in him, and they want to play for the guy. I really do. I don't see the kind of quit among the Raiders players around a Derek Carr because he does put them in good positions. He puts the ball in places where guys are going to catch it. He has the trust, or at least maybe has trusted Josh Jacobs, and Jacobs has run with it. And Jacobs is an exceptional case. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the Raiders struck gold with Josh Jacobs and picking him exactly at the spot where they were going to get him, exactly where he was going to land, and turned out to be a value find more than anybody else, and perhaps just got lucky because they were the only one shopping for a running back in the first round.
Right.
I mean, this is how it worked out. And you look at some of these other teams that don't have running games or legitimate running games. You're looking at them like, how do you let this one slide? Not that Josh Jacobs is going to be running out there counting up to 24 on his fingers when he's out there, playing football. But, he knows his worth, and I think the league understands him too. And anyway, I digress. But, moving forward with Derek Carr, there's going to be very tough decisions because trading him, it's not going to be some great pick.
No.
You're not going to get a first rounder or a second rounder. I mean, the Cardinals got lucky when they got a second rounder for Rosen.
Yeah.
That was just dumb luck that
Right.
they were able to pull something out of that hat. But Carr's got a little more mileage on the tires, so to speak.
And
it's going to be like a fourth rounder, maybe fifth rounder.
Exactly. It's going to be mid-round. And not only that, but listen, the conversation that we're having right now, everybody in the NFL listens to. Doesn't mean that they all agree with every point of the criticisms of Derek Carr, but that brings down trade value. And his play over the second half of the season didn't help that either because it's not like he came out and balled. And maybe we're not even having the conversation, but I think, what they talked about with Hard Knocks, right? To both Peterman and Carr, John Gruden said, hey, why can't you be more like me? I mean, it was a little passing, and it wasn't a joke. It was like you get the sense that, hey, you know what? He wants his guys. That's what he did with the roster, right? He's flipped over the roster.
Yep.
And so can Derek Carr be that guy? Derek Carr, to me, one of my favorite players of all time, it's on the baseball side, is Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn was not the vocal leader in the dugout, never was. He liked to lead through play and all that. So he was never going to be that guy who stood up and said, hey, on me, let's go. And I think that's what you see with Derek Carr, too. He's the quarterback, and he leads their offense in that way, and he does a fine job as a leader. But is he the emotional, fiery leader that the team needs? And I think in all of these stories and all these conversations about him, the resounding answer to all that is no. And so can you in the modern NFL have that guy? Lombardi compared him to Vinny Testaverde from a personality and leadership standpoint, not
Sure.
from a talent standpoint. And so is that what he is? And if that's what he is, are you going to have it somewhere else? Are you going to have a leader like that on your team, or do you need it to be your quarterback? It's a question.
Goodness. Well, and then there's the issue then with the quarterbacks that are on this roster behind Derek Carr.
Nobody.
There's no scream and shout guys, and that's going to rule out signing a guy like a Marcus Mariota.
Right.
He's not a scream and shout guy. Now maybe he'll roar into a haka, I suppose, next year if that's what's going to get him a 1-year or 2-year deal. Yeah, but you look at. Carr's not. I don't think Carr has to go anywhere else to prove himself. He's proven to be a starting caliber quarterback.
No doubt.
But he's a starting caliber quarterback of the middling 16, 17, 18 kind of quarterback kind of guy.
Yeah.
Is that the guy that's going to take you to the next level where you talk about a guy, I hate saying Nick Foles, but Nick Foles had a special season in Philadelphia, and everything he did was just incredibly magical. Carr would need some sort of that magical run, I think, in 2020. And I think you and I agree he's still going to be here in 2020.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to need that magical run to stick around. Otherwise, he's gone. I mean, there's just no other way around it. This team's fallen short way too long, way too fast, just in terms of where they've played, where the record has fallen, and to make the postseason. And I think Raider Nation should expect more. I mean, I think they have I don't think there's necessarily a right to expect more, but I think you don't want to go down that nasty rabbit hole that the Cleveland Browns have gone down. You
Correct.
don't want to have to slide down that far to where, man, we just suck every year, but we're loyal fans and we're loyal. So you question that noise. I mean, you have every right to question that noise. But I think in 2020, and I'm not saying this is going to buy Derek Carr another year, but he is under contract. There's not a lot of money there, to be honest. And if you're going to go out and sign a splashy free agent, is it going to be anything that's going to upgrade that position? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Let's be honest out there. I just don't see that body out there that's going to turn that corner. And other teams have already tried to do it. Kirk Cousins has kind of done pretty well in Minnesota. And, you look at Cade McNown, that didn't freaking work. Joe Flacco, that didn't freaking work. Miami's just a hot dumpster fire as it is. And Jameis Winston, I just don't trust the guy.
Oh, no.
The guy can sling it, but he doesn't. I mean, he's slinging it to Mike Evans. If I threw it to Mike Evans, I'd throw for 400 yards a game.
And I think that's the key here, Paul, is when you see Derek Carr, he is what you see. And that's not a bad thing. It's just with every quarterback, with every position player, you have limitations. Are you willing to accept his limitations, build around him, meaning that, okay, if you're John Gruden and Mike Mayock, are you saying, okay, we got the guy we need, we just need to go out and get him the weapons, which is an argument a lot of fans of Derek Carr say, look, he needs more weapons, okay? So that's fine. If you're going to do that, then that's your approach, and that's what you're going to do. At the same time, though, you have to look, if you're John Gruden, and say, is this who can take me to the next level? Because the Raiders, they have almost not quite as bad as the Browns, of course, but they have, since Rich Gannon retired in 2006, it's 13 years ago,
sure,
they have not had that consistent guy until they got Derek Carr. So Derek Carr has been a consistent presence for them. Does he do everything perfect? No. Is he Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre? No, he's not. But you can do much worse. That's the other warning I give Raider fans is you wish, you think in greener pastures over on the other side of things, and then you go out and you sign a veteran, let's say, because I'm not real impressed with anybody in this class that would make them significantly better. Then you go get that guy, and then you're complaining about that guy because he's not exactly what you. So you either have to address it through the draft, and there's some argument which I'm buying more into nowadays, which is you don't win with a great defense only, and you get by with a Trent Dilfer-led offense. What you need is a combination. You need a much more balanced team with an offense that can score in the new wide-open spread NFL offense. And that's what they're going to have to answer. And guess what? That's what they get paid all the big money for, is to make those decisions.
Sure.
And fans aren't going to make it for them.
Paul and Scott, the Playmakers here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Before we push on, Scott, are we asking the right question, though? Are we saying that Derek Carr is the wrong fit for the John Gruden system, or we need to say that John Gruden isn't adapting to Derek Carr and his strengths?
Good question. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you look at Gruden's system in Tampa, which is the last example we have,
right, it
was not a vertical passing offense, right? It's not what Al Davis envisioned when he created the Raiders. It was out passes and the across the middle slants that you saw Hunter Renfrow.
Right.
You throw a 7-yard pass and you let the receiver do the yards after the catch thing, which is exactly what happened yesterday. And so with that in mind, people look at this and they're blaming Derek Carr, and I'm sitting there looking, did you not watch what John Gruden did in the past? Now, when he was with the Raiders the first time, he did go a little more downfield, but he had a veteran MVP caliber quarterback,
sure,
and he was adjusting to the talent he had. So I think you have a little bit of both. I think John Gruden deserves some of the scrutiny on what has happened with Derek Carr and what he's doing there. But then you see highlights, right? You see highlights of Derek Carr looking and not progressing through his receivers. That's not John Gruden. That's the quarterback. If you're not looking off a receiver and seeing a guy open in the middle of the field or on the right side of the field when you're looking left because you're so focused on Darren Waller because you have that great relationship with him, that's on the quarterback. So it's a little bit of both. And I think you're right, though. I think people are asking just the one question. Is Derek Carr the right guy? When they should be asking, could he be the right guy if John Gruden adjusted his system to the talents and the abilities of his quarterback?
I make the John Gruden face every time my son tells me he washes his hands after using the bathroom. It's just kind of like this look of, I don't believe you just, yeah. Coming up next, your Vegas Golden Knights are on the back end of a back-to-back. Back at home at the Fortress taking on the Avs. A quick preview coming up next.
When you need inside info on your Raiders, you'll find it right here.
Raiders defensive line coach Brenson Buckner.
We're not trying to be the best pass rushers we can be. We're not trying to be the best run stoppers we can be. We're trying to be the best football players we can be.
With your Walker Furniture Raiders Daily, I'm Mark Thomas. The Silver and Black met with...
My favorite thing about our team is our Madden ratings are really low, but we're pretty good at football.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
Raider Nation rallies with us. CBS Sports Radio 1140.